Lady fellas, F and Real Society, welcome to the Fantasy in Reality Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Tacker. Today in the ridiculously over-decorated studio, we're going to be discussing quarterback and running back starts and sits for Week 2. So the first game we're going to talk about is New England versus Miami. Start Brady, no-brainer. Sit Fitzpatrick. It's not looking good in Miami. Everyone wants out. So if you have any Miami players, get rid of them ASAP as soon as possible. Just don't even worry about them. I'm not sure what's going to even go on in Miami this season. Just quit while you're ahead. For the running backs, start Sony. That would be the only guy that I'd be confident in. Even though he didn't see much production in the last game in New England, I feel it's because they used other running backs more. They passed a lot more. In many plays, they had James White and Burkhead in the backfield a lot. They used Burkhead a lot more than most people thought they would. So I feel that they're not going to do that as much, and Miami's atrocious, as we said before. So there, I'm sure we're going to get an early lead and keep it, never give up, never look back, and probably in the second half start to just not put on the brakes, but just coast a while, let Sony run, do his thing, so maybe he can get some garbage time touches, maybe a couple touchdowns here and there to be hopefully productive for your week. Like I said, the other running backs, even on Miami, Balaj and Drake, just don't even trust them, especially against the New England defense, who's very good. The next game I have is Arizona versus Baltimore. Now, I will start Lamar Jackson and not be overly cautious because, as I said in a previous video, you don't want to overreact to Week 1, but his performance was so well-balanced, well-rounded, it didn't look like an anomaly type thing. So I feel that he can sustain this for at least another few weeks. Maybe not all the passing touchdowns and so little rushing. He might mix in a bit more rushing and have less touchdowns. He could have a rushing touchdown instead of a couple more passing touchdowns. So there's that potential upside. He might run more against Arizona's defense because all their starters in the secondary for Arizona still aren't there. So he could very well just air it out there, do his thing. As for Kyler Murray, I would probably sit him. You could start him with caution. I would err on the side of caution enough to where I would bench him. But if you're a believer in him, a truther in Kyler Murray, if you're in a jam and need to start him, then you could. I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't blame you if you need to. As for the running backs, David Johnson is an automatic start for me. I think he's going to do well, get a lot of touches, maybe even a lot more receptions. And even with the Ravens defense being so good, I think he's still going to have a well-rounded game. Ingram, I would start him. I think he's going to have another decently good game. Maybe not 2 touchdowns worth as the taste you got in Week 1, but I think he'll still see good production. As for Justice Hill, I'll bench him for this week. We didn't see him enough last week to think that he's going to see enough time. The next game I have up is the LA Chargers versus the Detroit Lions. I would start Phillip Rivers. He should have a really good game. Detroit's not looking too hot on basically either side of the ball. Their offense did decently well, but some aspects of it we weren't too crazy about. Even though their defense is not that great, I think that the Lions could keep up with them, and it could be a shootout. So I would start Stafford. He had a very well-rounded game last week, so he found his rookie tight end. They didn't have much of a running game, but hopefully they can get that port running. I'll be a little ballsy here and start all the running backs. I would start Austin Eckler. He had a fantastic game last week. He saw a lot of touches, a lot of receptions, a few touchdowns. So hopefully he can continue that. Justin Jackson, I think, in especially deeper leagues, he could be of value because he saw, an okay amount. Not enough to be super relevant in smaller leagues, but in a deeper league, he should be a good guy to have. I'm also hoping that Kerryon Johnson can show what he can do. They're not quite giving him as much. He had one slight opportunity getting a decent amount of carries in Week 1, but hopefully they don't lose faith in him. He sees double-digit carries hopefully in the 20-ish range, to show that he's a workhorse, he can do it. But if he can't, I would also start C.J. Anderson. Like I said about Justin Jackson, deeper leagues, he could be a guy of value. So I would be ballsy for this game and start all 4 guys. The next game is the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. I would start both quarterbacks. I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to bounce back and have a good game. I think Kirk Cousins is going to be more reliant on Stephon Diggs because he could be 100% healthy. He could go for Thielen and maybe get some dump-offs to Cook because Cook had a great game, so he's also a start for me. He's the only running back in this game that is a start. I would bench Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, and Madison. I don't think that they're going to see anything good. Aaron Jones did not have a very good game last Thursday. Jamal Williams took a few carries from him. So if the starter isn't doing that well, plus the backup is eating into his workload, then it's not a good thing for either one of those guys. So I'm benching them both. Alexander Madison won't see anything unless, knock on wood, Cook gets hurt. So if he doesn't, I'll keep Madison on the bench. For the next game, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans. I would no-brainer start Deshaun Watson. I think that he's going to be 100%. He took that little spill in the game on Monday night when he went in for the rushing touchdown. He kind of landed on his hip a bit. It looked to aggravate him the whole game, but he still went out there and performed like nothing was wrong. But you could tell when he was on the sideline getting massaged and stuff, it was bothering him. But as I said, he did not let that affect his performance. He still did great, except for that one interception. Other than that, he had a very fantastic game, so he's a start for me. Now, on the other side, I would not start Gardner Minshew. I'm not sure if he's even going to be a starter for this week. I'm sure he is, but there's a whole thing since Foles got injured. They got a backup from the Steelers, so it's going to start to get muddied up, it looks like. So I kind of don't want to have anything to do with the quarterbacks in that situation. As for the running backs in that game, I would start Fournette. I'm hoping he can see a lot more volume and do what he can with those carries. And on the other side of the ball, I would start Duke Johnson in deeper league PPR because, as he showed in the Monday Night game, he can do stuff. He can bounce it outside. He can get some carries. He can get some receiving yards. He can do a lot of different things. I would bench Carlos Hyde. He had some decent runs, but he doesn't have that receiving PPR upside, so that's why he would be a bench for me. Next, we have the Buffalo Bills and the New York Giants. I would start Josh Allen. He had a decently good game. Hopefully he can get the turnovers to a minimum and do what he can do, rush like he can, throw it to all his receivers, especially John Brown, maybe get Cole Beasley in there, and all the other guys he has. So I'd start him. I would bench Manning, Jones, whoever it's going to be. I'm sure it'll be Eli Manning, but at this rate, who knows? As for running backs, start Saquon, no problem. I would start Devin Singletary with a little bit of caution because he's the starter. Hopefully, we'll see what they do. If you don't want to start Singletary, I wouldn't blame you. If you're overly cautious, then I would bench him. But if you feel like being on that risky side, that you can afford to take that risk, then you can start Singletary. I would bench Gore, bench Yeldon, because I'm kind of getting more faith into Singletary. That's why I would make him a start with caution. Next game, we have Seattle Seahawks and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I would start both Russell Wilson and Ben Roethlisberger. I think that they're going to bounce back a bit, especially Big Ben, from week one. Russell Wilson did a good job. I think he's going to hopefully throw Lockett a bit more. DK Metcalf is going to be even more healthy, so he's going to see even more production, so he has the weapons. But I don't see anyone besides the starters of the running backs seeing any good playing time and production. So I'd start both quarterbacks. I'd start both starting running backs and Chris Carson and James Conner, both with caution because I'm not sure how they're going to produce with the new upcoming defenses on each side. especially with Clowney being in Seattle. We'll see what Connor can do. Connor wasn't that productive in week 1, so I'm also not going to start Jalen Samuels or Rashad Penny unless you're in super deep leagues. As I said before, they might be a bit valuable to you, but unless you're in a very deep league and you're in desperate need of help, I would be cautious to start Carson and Connor, and I probably would not start Penny and Samuels. Next game, we have the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. I would unfortunately bench both of these quarterbacks. I'm not a Marcus Mariota truther. I think that week 1 might have been a fluke for him because those aren't the type of games that he's known to have. He's basically known to have what Baker had. All the turnovers, a very disappointing game. So I don't think that this is going to continue. As for Jacoby Brissett, I like what he did last week, but the Tennessee Titans defense did look pretty legit. Like I said, Baker looked terrible against them. So I think those might be the actual stars of the whole team. So if you want to start Brissett, I would caution against it. But if you're in a jam, then you could, but I wouldn't. As for the running backs, I would start Derrick Henry, even though he had that very volatile one-play huge touchdown that got him most of his points. He did see a decent amount of volume, so hopefully that continues, which I think it will, especially against the Colts. They might have to run a lot, so I'll start Marlon Mack as well. I think the running games will start to pick up in both of these teams, especially in week 2. So I'll start both of them. As far as Nyheim Hines and Deion Lewis are concerned, I wouldn't start them unless you're in a very deep PPR league. They might be valuable to you. Get 2 or 3 catches for maybe 20 or so yards. Get a few points for you, just be a little bit bump up in your points. But if you're not in a deep league, like I said, I would probably keep these guys on the bench. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Redskins. I would start Dak. He did fantastic last week. I think his confidence is going to stay up and not get too cocky, so I think he's going to continue with a similar performance this week, especially with the Washington Redskins, who surprised a lot of Eagles and jumped out to an early lead last week, but I'm just not sure with everything going on that they're going to be able to stop the newly confident Dallas Cowboys. So I would bench Case Keenum because that Cowboys defense is actually looking pretty ferocious. There are a lot of good guys on that defense. So I would probably bench Keenum just to be safe because he could throw a couple picks. As for the running backs, Zeke's a start, no problem. Done talking about him. Darius Geis injured his other knee. I think it was a meniscus injury. We're not sure how long he's going to be out. Last week, Adrian Peterson was a healthy scratch for the first time in his career. He's probably going to be active, be the number 1 guy. But I still am not sure if that means he's going to be a start. Because, like I said, the Dallas defense is going to be fantastic. So they could give AP all he can handle this week. But that means that hopefully Chris Thompson can do something. He's another PPR guy. As you know, I like running back 2 PPR guys that catch a lot of balls, that can go out in the flat, catch a ball, like Kamara and Latavius were doing on Monday night's game, things like that. So if Chris Thompson can do that against the Cowboys, then he could have success. I'm not starting Pollard because, as I said, Zeke's going to play, he's going to eat. Next, we have the Kansas City Chiefs and the Oakland Raiders. Mahomes is a start, no problem. Derek Carr will probably be a sit because the Kansas City defense is getting better. So they're finally able to work together and become a cohesive unit. So last week was kind of a bit of a tune-up game type of thing. And this week we'll finally see what they're made of. So that's why I would sit Derek Carr because I think they're going to be better than they were last week. As far as the running backs go, I would start Shady and I would start Damian Williams, but I would probably err on the side of caution with those 2 guys as well. You could start both of them. They might see similar production, so maybe one is an RB2, one is a flex. But, as I said, I wouldn't blame you if you would not start these guys. If you have better options, then don't even worry about them. I would start Josh Jacobs. He had a good performance, solid, 100+ yards, 2 touchdowns. So I think he's going to be a workhorse back for that team. He showed he could do a decent job, so hopefully that play will continue. Next, we have the Chicago Bears and the Denver Broncos. This will be a bit quicker because I will bench both the quarterbacks and all of the running backs. I think that Trubisky looked like a mess last Thursday. I'm not sure what's going on. He didn't get to play in the preseason, so that might have been the rust getting knocked off of him. But he might need a bit more of a tune-up in order to get better into mid-season form. It might take a little longer to get there, so I'll probably bench him. Flacco, not impressive in that Raiders loss, so I'll bench him as well. As far as the running backs, Royce Freeman and Phillip Lindsay might split too much. Who knows who's going to get more carries this week? It might be Lindsay, it might be Freeman. Who knows? I would rather just not have to deal with that headache and bench both of those guys. As far as for the Bears, I would love to see Montgomery see more carries, but they started out last Thursday with Cohen fumble, with Mike Davis a small run, and so it's like you have this back. Why aren't you using him? Why are you using Cohen, Mike Davis, and not Montgomery? It's another who's going to have the big game, who they're going to utilize more. So instead of trying to play the guessing game, I'll just bench all of them. The next game we have the New Orleans Saints and the Los Angeles Rams, the big revenge game and everything like that. I would start Drew Brees, and I would also start Jared Goff. Brees had a really good game, except for that one interception in the red zone early on Monday night. After that, he threw a couple touchdowns. Last drive, he led the team down the field, and they got a field goal to win. So, all in all, he looked decently well. He had at least one throw over 20 yards. So, we know that they threw a bit more than what was expected. So, hopefully they keep that up and he can keep his numbers up. As for Goff, he did not look very good. And I'm super high on Jared Goff this year. I think he's going to be fantastic. And as far as the New Orleans secondary, they picked on Marcus Williams, PJ Williams a lot. So if those guys are going to get picked on again, that means that whoever Marshawn Lattimore is not on could see big games. So whoever Lattimore is covering might see a decent game. But the other two guys, if Woods and Kupp aren't the ones that are getting covered by Lattimore, then those will probably be the ones with the better games. So I'm decently confident in Goff this week. Hopefully he can pick it up because he's one of my top guys this season at the quarterback position. So if he can pick it up, that'd be great. As far as the running backs go, Kamara, no problem. I would start Latavius, maybe in a flex spot. He did see an okay amount of work. He got a touchdown. So, you know, he might be able to snake some of those red zone carries from Kamara. And so it could lead to more touches, more catches. So a decent flex spot or in a deeper league, Latavius Murray could be a number 2 for you. I would also start Gurley, even though Malcolm Brown had 2 touchdowns. Gurley was still just barely shy of 100 yards. So they're using him a decent amount. It's just that Malcolm Brown got the 2 touchdowns. I don't see Brown doing that again because the New Orleans defense kind of had a few moments where they slipped up and let a few big runs go out there. But for the most part, they kind of contained the running game. So unless Gurley breaks one, I don't see them using multiple backs. And so that's why I'm kind of thinking that Malcolm Brown is a sit. I don't think he's going to be getting the goal line and red zone touches like he did in the game before. Next, we have the Philadelphia Eagles and the Atlanta Falcons. Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan will both be starts for me. I think Matty Ice will have a bounce-back game because that Atlanta offense did not look too hot against the Vikings. Of course, they were against the Vikings, but all in all, they were not looking too hot. So hopefully, this could be one of those bounce-back games for the entire Atlanta offense. I would start Carson Wentz. He did decently well. I think he's going to continue that. because Kirk Cousins had a decently good game, so I think that Wentz will have a better game against that Atlanta defense. D-Jax could see a couple long bombs like he did in the week 1, so we'll see how that goes. I am a Devonta Freeman truther, so I will start him. I'm going to give him another chance. I think he can do it. As for the Philadelphia backfield, I'll sit Sanders, Howard, and Sproles because that's another backfield. We don't know who's going to get the work, so another one, rather than having the headache, we're just going to bench them all. And to finish it up with the Monday night game, the Cleveland Browns against the New York Jets. I will start both the quarterbacks. I think that Baker needs a redemption game desperately, so that could happen with the Jets. Now, they have Jamal Adams for him to worry about, but if he can stay away from Adams and do some dump-off passes, he doesn't have to go 30 yards down the field for every pass. He could go a little shorter, get a lot more bang for his buck, do the things that he can do well instead of trying too hard and forcing the ball like he did in the fourth quarter with 3 interceptions against the Titans. So hopefully he can have that bounce-back game. As for Sam Darnold, I think he's going to do well. They just signed Demarius, so that's another weapon for him. I'm not sure if that means that Robbie Anderson is still hurt or anything like that, but that just means more weapons for Darnold, so I'm excited about that. I would start both running backs, no problem. Nick Chubb had an okay game, but not up to his standards, so I think he had so many opportunities that you could see he just had a little bit of an opening. He could have gotten it. He got shoestring tackled quite a few times. Like he had so many almost opportunities that maybe this week those will come to fruition. He'll bust a few long ones. As for Le'Veon, same thing. He had a pretty good game. He had a decent amount of running yards. And then receiving-wise, he did well. So he's an all-around better back in that offense. So hopefully he can keep that up and the Jets can come together and be a good offense, just like the Browns desperately need to do, because as I said, it was not that great. If you watched the game, it was very disappointing to see them just basically implode. So hopefully they can brush it off, come back for week 2. They're in prime time, so if they can just kill it, that'd be fantastic. But those were my start sets for the quarterback and running back position for week 2. Tell me who you think should be a starter, who you think should be on the bench compared to my list. If you have any questions, if I name 2 starters that you have or 2 bench players that you have, who should you start over who? Let me know. I'll try to answer anything and everything as honestly and as helpful as I can. But as always, thank you for tuning in and thank you for your support. Leave your questions, topic suggestions, comments down there in the comment section below. Sports is supposed to be enjoyed together, so please watch us and tell someone about us. That way we can grow our channel, grow our community. In order to do that, you gotta smash that thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, so we try to keep giving you as much content as possible. But lastly, God bless America and God bless fantasy football. Take care.